You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Hello, all you believers, idealists, skeptics, and all those who question the universe around them. I'm Bailey.
And I'm Ty.
And Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you all enjoyed our Encounters episode. That
Absolutely.
was a fun one for us to do.
Yeah, this is our official second year in Cult Talk Conspiracy now, technically. So
It's so exciting too, because just not in real time, not too long ago, we just passed 500 downloads.
Yes.
At only being 4 months old at that time. So that's really crazy to us. And we're like, it's super cool and just very humbling to have your guys' support.
Right.
And,
yeah.
you know,
Who knows where we'll be by the time this comes out?
I know. Maybe we'll break the 1,000 mark.
We'll see. That'd be awesome.
Maybe. Let's dream big. Speaking of big things, we're going to be talking about a really cool. So first of all, I have to admit to you guys that I lied a little bit. I told the truth on some parts in our last episode a little bit ago, but I did lie to you just a slight bit. So we're going to be covering dimensions and parallel universes. However, instead of kind of going into the multiverse like I described in the last time you heard from us not too long ago, after that, we're going to be doing a segment of the encounters between dimensions and parallel universes.
That'll be interesting,
will mesh quite well. So it's just going to be a normal episode. You guys get a freebie encounters. We love doing them so much that
they're great.
Let's do it. So today we're talking about dimensions, and today we're going to be talking about the hows and why. So we're going to be talking about a lot of big wordy things. However, I found some really cool sources that were able to really kind of Barney style it down for me. So they were awesome, really cool sources. Sean Carroll was one of them. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and we're going to get into all that. But Ty, what do you think of all the different dimensions?
Dimensions is a super interesting concept. It's one of those things too, like you read so much into it and it gets really, really freaky. Like so much of it just makes sense. There's so much science behind it that at a certain point it's kind of difficult to deny, even deny the plausibility of it. Because I mean, it's just there's so much there to kind of support it. So it's very interesting to read about dimensions and how crazy that is. Just to think there's these alternate realities. It's just wild. Dimensions are such an eerie thing to read about.
Yeah, it's crazy. How many dimensions do you think there are?
I don't know. Isn't there like a finite? There's like an infinite number of dimensions. Isn't that like kind of the idea? There's an infinite number of dimensions.
No.
Okay.
Yes and no, and we're gonna get into that, and that's really cool. So there's a little bit of a debate between if there's 10 or 11 dimensions. We'll also get into that. I'm super excited about this. I've come out and said that I believe in multiple dimensions previously, and I really do. I think the universe and the concept of time is just too big to only live in one spectrum. You know,
right.
It's just too big. Like when people are, no shade, but when people are like, I don't believe in aliens, I'm like, what do you think is out there?
Exactly.
To me, like logically, and this is my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You're allowed to have yours. I'm allowed to have mine. I just don't know how you have that opinion. So I don't know. Explain it to me, someone. I would love to have a conversation. But I think without any further ado, I'm super pumped. I'm super jazzed.
Yes.
I really want to get into the hows, what's, and know-hows of dimensions. So I think we're ready.
Yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot here in this little series. So
I think it is time to unseal file number 010. We're in double digits, baby.
Woo.
Part 1 of a 3-part series, Dimensions. So we're going to talk about the how and what are dimensions. And this is going to be the quantum mechanics heavy portion of of today's show. And I can tell you right now, my dad is probably so excited because we had Schrodinger's cat book on our shelf as we were growing up, and that'll make a little bit more sense here in a second. However, quantum mechanics, basically the mystery or the puzzle behind it, just to give you the 100,000 overhead foot view, is that the rules change when you observe something. And that was mainly brought about by Edwin Rudolph Joseph Alexander Schwarzenegger. I literally just said it a second ago. It was great. Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
Schwarzenegger.
German.
Yes.
So Schwarzenegger had a cat, and he had the cat in the box theory.
You're talking about Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, Schrodinger.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm trying to I see the accent over top of the O, and I'm like, I have to be fancy. So the cat in the box theory. Thank you. You probably just saved so many people screaming right. So the cat in the box was basically a theory that stated that the cat could be both dead and alive until the box was open and the cat's state was measured. This is a big forum of quantum mechanics. Basically, things change whenever you are looking at them and when you're not looking at them.
Okay.
So, and that was called the measurement of the problem. And when a system, so this is textbook quantum mechanics, is that when a system is observed, it changes unexpectedly. So you can think of it as something spinning in the universe. So if something is spinning vertically, it's going left to right, or up and down, that's vertical. So when something is spinning vertically, going up and down, it will always go in the up and down state. Are we still following?
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So it can only go in the up and down state too. So it's predictable, and you're able just to see it coming. It's always going to be in a vertical state. And the same can go for a horizontal state. A horizontal state will always stay in a horizontal state. So it can't produce a state of unpredictability. You always have a 50-50 chance of it either going one way or the other. So the mystery behind quantum mechanics will be how we describe the thing when we are not looking at it is the difference than how we describe the thing when we are looking at it. So basically, we're unaware of what's happening when we aren't looking at these things versus when we are looking at these things.
Okay.
So to simplify that, basically, you kind of think I just have to go back to the cat theory, because when you could put the cat in the box, did you cut the air off? Is it dead? Did it go to another dimension? Do we know what happened to it? I don't know. We don't know because we're not looking at it. We can't describe what it is because we're not looking at it. However, when we are looking at it, it's going to be different 100% of the time than what we describe it when we're not looking at it. It's kind of how you describe yourself to other people. When
is it kind of like does a tree falling make a sound if no one's around to hear it, kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things.
Gotcha.
So that is going to lead us into the many worlds theories. And this is pretty much when classical mechanics meets quantum mechanics. So quantum mechanics or classical mechanics always has, nothing is unpredictable. It's always going to be one way or the other. Quantum mechanics brings in the aspect of unpredictability. So what you get now is kind of this many worlds theory. And I actually looked into the many worlds theory, and I mean, you're going to see my bias a little bit no matter what. I mean, it sounds pretty sound. I don't know. From what I understand of the big scientific words, it sounds good. So what you have to remember in the missing worlds theory is when you're thinking about these mechanics is that most of the time you're missing two things when you're thinking about them is you are obeying a quantum system. You yourself are a quantum system. You are energy. You are made up of atoms. You have electrons in you. You are obeying a quantum system. You're obeying whether you're going to be predictable or unpredictable.
Okay.
And you're also missing the status of entanglement. So entanglement means that if you measure one, you're able to predict the other based off of what you are observing. So when you observe, your wave function then entangles and splits into two different wave functions versus one where you saw the thing spinning one way, going
Okay.
back to our ball,
Right.
and one where you saw the thing spinning the other way. So you have two different worlds here where you have one outcome and you have the opposite outcome. And this actually kind of supports what we're going to get into here in a second, but this does support the multiple dimensions theory, and this specifically supports dimension 4, but we're going to get into that in a minute.
Okay.
Yes, they're numbered. There's a lot. Separate worlds is the most relatable to dimension number 4. My apologies. Not the
So they have actually kind of identified what they believe the dimensions to be. Is that what?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
They've
like,
come out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre because, like I said, it was believed to only be 10 dimensions, but now there's some debate for an 11th dimension now.
So when you say they, who are they? What do you mean by they are saying it's like, who are these people you're referring to? Is it like scientists or?
It's scientists. It's the big quantum mechanics geniuses.
Okay.
We'll get names here in a second. I'm very sorry. I forgot to write down names. I was like really entangled with entangled. I was just really like enthralled with the information. Like you can ask Ben and Eric. I was like down deep with the tinfoil hat on and everything. It was crazy.
Absolutely. I imagine.
So there's also separate worlds, which is two versions of yourself, but they're not adding, nor will they enter. They're not adding or subtracting anything from your life, but they're also not interacting with each other either. Like you, Ty, have another version of Ty that is a total independent being that has nothing to do with your life, nor will ever have anything to do with your life, but still exists.
Got you. Okay.
So, but you can't meet. You can't meet or else you'll be destroyed.
Okay.
Or something bad will happen. They never really go into much theory on what will happen if the two personalities meet. I guess you'll just like combust and cease existing.
Well, if most movies are any indication, it's not good. So
no. So here is where we get into like a little bit of a difference, because there's a result in an infinite or a very big number of worlds and versions of you. It still doesn't affect your world throughout time.
Okay.
But there can still be a high number of infinite versions of you. And basically what this all comes down to is this is a cause and effect based system. When you start getting into different versions of yourself in parallel universes, you can have a universe where you choose to go left down the street versus right down the street. Either way, you've created a universe where you physically went left, and now this is your world that you're in. But now another world has branched off where you chose right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then you've branched that off. And then you can go even further to say, like, well, he went left into the coffee shop and, had a great coffee. Or he went right into the garden and got stuck in a mud pit. Like, there's two different stories there. So,
wow.
It's wild. And just so you guys know, I found this to be real fun. Sean Carroll talks about this a little bit on the Joe Rogan podcast. There's actually a universe splitter app on the iPhone. It's only available for iPhones. And it's basically a version of a waveform measurement. It sends a signal to a lab. And I think they mentioned it was somewhere cold. I don't want to say it's Russia, but
Siberia.
It's not
like
Russia. I don't think they're in Russia, but they're somewhere cold right now.
Okay.
So it sends the signal to a lab, and then the lab then sends a photon through a splitter, and then the lab gets, into the app, and they tell you what side of the splitter you fell on. And this is for stuff like, will I accept this job or not? Should we name the company A or B? Who pays for the next date night? And like, you can literally take photons and have a scientist split them and like put them in the thing and like just totally leave it up to chance. And like, it's an app on the iPhone. It's called the Universe Splitter.
Universe? Wow. I've never heard of that. I'm going to look into that.
Yes,
that's interesting.
It's only available for the iPhone. Not available for us Android users. I'm sorry, they don't like this.
Well, luckily, I'm part of the civilized world. I have an iPhone, so
I love it. I love my Android.
I hate
It's
the
so
Android.
user friendly.
I have an Android for work, and I hate it. I want to pitch the thing across the wall every time I see it. I don't have to do anything on it because I have an iPhone. That's my personal phone. So, like, things are just so much simpler there. And we have universe splitters on ours.
I mean, fuck. It's just another way of capitalism, I bet. I wonder how much money
it's another way to track everything you do, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is.
It isn't going anywhere but to some database. They're just telling you, oh, it landed on side A. Yeah.
I bet one of them in there somewhere. Please don't do this, but I bet one of them in there is, should I get a divorce? And someone went, let's ruin this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Someone was having a bad day that day or something. Like, let's do it.
Jeez.
Don't do that. I'm not.
No, don't put your livelihood at the risk of an app.
No, don't let apps choose for you.
No.
So going back into the different versions of self. So this is very, very important for the next things we're going to talk about, which are going to be the different dimensions. So this is very important to keep in mind. That all these versions of you are different people. They're like twins. There are constant versions being made. And the reason behind this is because no version of you is ever the same as the one you currently are.
Okay.
And we're going to take a moment for the deepness of that statement. I wrote that and I went, that should be like on one of those inspirational quote things. It's gorgeous. By the way, I loved this video. I actually watched it a good couple of times just because of how easy he explained the different 11 dimensions. It's by Engineering Made Easy. It's 11 dimensions explained.
I actually watch him a lot for my job.
Do you really?
Yeah, I watch him a lot he has great shit on how current and all that shit works. So I watch him a lot. I never watch him for this kind of stuff. I watch him for the practical stuff I do.
He was awesome. Like, it was just so like he had pictures and graphs. And by the way, he's really good. We don't have a visual element here, but one thing we are going to be talking about is our points. Let me see. Point like particles. I don't have the graphs here. I'm not going to go very hard into explaining the point particles.
It's something I could put on Facebook or on Instagram, I'm sure, if you want to look at.
Oh yeah. We put photos of it. It's very interesting. You basically like connect the dots, and however many dots you connect are how many like versions of self or versions of a dimension there are.
That is insane.
Like at one point there's like 16 in one. It's very interesting. So there are 11 dimensions. Now, what is a dimension? They are different facets in which we perceive reality to be. So this is a dimension. This is the dimension where Ty and we record a podcast. In another dimension, Ty and I may have never met. In another dimension, Ty and I might hate each other and still be doing this podcast. I don't know.
It's up for chance.
The main difference involved here is the number of coordinates. So in a 2-dimensional world, you have your length and your width. And in the 3-dimensional world, you have length, width, and height. So those are going to be your fundamental differences in all of the dimensions, are how many coordinates or points are being used. So one thing to note also is we could actually be living in a higher dimension but unable to see it due to our brain capacity. So we actually have to go to a microscopic level in order to study more of these dimensions and whatnot. And that's when you get more into like atoms and electrons and things creating energy and bouncing energy off of one another, which is very interesting. So without further ado, we're going to go into dimension 0, which is no length, no height, and no width. It's literally just a point. So there's no body, no shape, it can't move, and it is known as like the base dimension. Like this is where the things start. So then from there we go to dimension 1. So it only has one function, which is just length, and it can only go in a straight line. It can only move within that straight line, and its only job is to just move forward. So in dimension 2, we then have flat shapes, which are like squares, things that have 0 volume and only move on a surface level. So these 2 dimensions only consist of length and width.
So they're thinking of these like these dimensions exist, like are functioning dimensions, like they function similar to ours, like living organisms and.
Yeah, it's quite possible that these could be functioning alongside of ours without our understanding or recollection.
Okay. Maybe like the little squiggly lines you see like in your eyes when you blink, maybe that's a dimension. Little flat lines.
You know, do you know like those little black dots that you get when you're winded or something?
Yeah.
When you're seeing that could be a different dimension. You're seeing points.
Yeah, maybe.
They're not doing anything. They're not moving.
Interesting.
I'm just saying. So the third dimension, which is what we live in, consists of length, width, and height. And these are all forced. This is all forced to move forward. So these are solid objects. This is like your balls, your car, your chair, humans, and they can move forward, backward, left, and right. However, when time is considered, you have to move in a forward motion. We're not allowed to go back in time. We're not allowed to see into the future. We can only move forward in time.
Okay.
So the fourth dimension is time, and you can move freely. It's the words time control were used. You can move freely in time, past or future. You can go back and change decisions, unlike in the third dimension, you know, how we're not allowed to go back in the future, go back in the past, or go forward in the future. However, the catch here in the fourth dimension is there are no parallel worlds here, which can be supportive upon the separate worlds argument, where there were two versions of yourself, but they're not adding nor subtracting, and they'll never interact with one another. So when I heard that one kind of clicked for me, like, oh, well, that can support this.
Right.
So the fifth dimension, that one is time control. This one, you like the powers from the fourth dimension are still there. So you can still move freely throughout time, past or future, can go back and change decisions. You can be present in each dimension at different times, just you as yourself, which is very interesting. That one kind of reminded me of Mr. World. And God help me, I can't remember what the movie is called with Rorschach.
Oh, you're talking about
The Watchmen.
Watchmen, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, a really good multi-dimension movie. If we're on the subject, is Super Mario Brothers. Watch that. It's very heavy on multi-dimensions. So,
guys,
ever want to see a good multi-dimension sci-fi movie, it's Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers.
We have to take a moment because Ty gifted me a signed copy of Super Mario Brothers. And I'm not kidding. It's like on its own shelf. It's on its own shelf.
Yeah.
I love it. I will treasure it forever. I'm serious. I love it.
Yeah. No, you just watch it.
No, Anna and I are watching it on our next girls' night.
It'd be good study for this episode.
Oh, darn. I missed out. We still have 2 more parts. It's fine.
Yeah. Watch Mario Brothers. You might have some new material for the next episode.
We might have to come back. We're going to have to come back. So, back to dimension number 5. So, what the main difference between dimension number 5 and dimension number 4 is that parallel universes actually do exist here, but in separate time. So, this is when you and your parallel universe self are more like twins, rather than being one person, because they have their own personality, they have their own life going on, all that crap. And this is cause and effect based also. So, the decision to go right or left does matter in these dimensions. And this is also the one where you cannot directly meet yourself from a parallel universe. If you do it in dimension 5, you're in big trouble. You just cease to exist. Dimension 6. Still all the powers of dimension number 5, which led me to wonder if you have, because 6, 5, and 4 all do the same thing, where it's like you possess the powers of dimension number 5 if you're in dimension number 6. You possess the powers of dimension number 4 if you're in number 5. Do you just keep, if you're on 6, would you just keep all of that from dimension 4?
That's interesting, yeah.
I feel like I'm talking about D&D here.
Yeah.
Will this help my dexterity at all? No, fine. Okay. So you still contain all the powers from Dimension 5 within the sixth dimension. The parallel universes can see the past, present, and future of all of them, which
Okay.
we're going to make some more movie references. And I said I wasn't going to do it, but this one did remind me of Doctor Strange when he's in Spider-Man No Way Home. Or not No Way Home, Endgame, when he looks at Gwen's character. What's her
Yeah.
name? Poppy.
MJ. Right?
Not
Or no, you're
MJ.
talking with Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen.
Yeah, there's Gwen Stacy
Gwyneth
and
Paltrow character.
oh, okay, I get what you mean.
Yeah, when he says he loved you in every universe,
Yeah.
like super crying moment. But yeah, you can see all that. So this still revolves around the same beginning. So it has to have the very same point of beginning, but doesn't have to have the same point of end. Is the biggest thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or even have an end to that effect. So you can meet the other versions of yourself from parallel universes, and each still act independently in dimension number 6, which is a big difference between the rest of the dimensions that we've previously talked about, because that's like a big trope thing. Like you can't meet yourself from another dimension, or if you do, it's like bad juju. So big things there. Dimension number 7 is an infinite number of universes and self. So you can move freely from universe to universe. You're free from limits of the 6th universe. So you don't have to have the same point of beginning or a point of beginning for that matter. It happens from different instances like the Big Bang. So, I mean, it happens from like universe creating instances, is when you get into dimension number 7.
Interesting. Okay.
I found where the ghosts live.
Oh. Allegedly.
They live in dimension number 8. So they can see possible past, presents, and futures.
Okay.
They're also infinite. They have no physical existence, and they only exist in a matter of shape and sound.
So these are like the things from Interstellar.
I mean, kinda.
You ever seen Interstellar? You haven't, have you?
No.
Oh, you said kinda like you'd seen it.
I said kinda because I didn't think you were going to question me on it. I wanted to seem cool.
I can tell you didn't. You've never seen it.
What's it about,
You've never
Bailey?
seen Interstellar. Jesus.
I just wanted to seem cool for 1 second, Todd. I'm sorry. I'll tell the truth. No, I haven't seen Interstellar.
I know. You've only seen like 10 movies. I knew Interstellar
They're all
wasn't
Disney
one
movies.
of them. Yeah, I knew Interstellar wasn't one of them. But you should check out Interstellar. Interstellar is another really good interdimensional kind of movie. So that's a good one. Christopher Nolan, Matthew McConaughey.
Ooh.
All right.
Oh,
all
it's
right.
got Christopher Nolan in it?
No, he wrote it. He's not
Oh,
in
he
it.
wrote it? Oh my God, does he have a double-sided coin in it?
No, he saved that for he only does those in Batman movies and Hallmark Christmas movies.
Hallmark films.
He saved for when he's ghostwriting Hallmark Christmas films.
I'm going to specifically look for that double-sided coin in every Christopher Nolan film now. I hate you, Eric.
Yeah. But yeah, check out Interstellar. It's a good one.
I need to now that I've lied about seeing it.
Yeah, for real.
I'm going to come on the next podcast. Like, I have watched Interstellar now. It is a true statement.
Yeah, you should. You should for the next one. It's really interesting. It's a good one.
It sounds interesting. If it's like in a dimensional film, like that's really, I like those.
It toys a lot of that. It's really good. But yeah, anyways, Dimension 8.
Yeah, Dimension 8, where the ghosts live. Because they have no physical existence. So, like, they don't have, like, they have a shape, but they never. It's kind of one of those, like, you can draw it and it has a shape, and then it's created by a being in that way. Disembodied voices also were something that were considered in this one as well. Which I couldn't find much on disembodied voices belonging to Dimension 8, really. It's really actually, it's hard to find what belongs to what dimension if we're talking about cryptids and whatnot. Because there is this thing called interdimensional travel, which we're going to get to towards the end of this podcast. But it's hard to figure out where they're traveling from, especially if we don't have a handle on what all the dimensions are, where they go, and what they can do. Because we haven't been there for ourselves. So, Dimension 9, these have laws of physics all of their own. So they do not follow what goes up must come down. They might even follow what goes down must come up. We don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
So this dimension, it's speculated that this is where aliens could coexist, and they could be so totally unaware of each other. Superpowers were also something that they could be able to possess, which I think when we talk about superpowers here, we're meaning abilities that are beyond human at this point. Honestly, I think like if we have like the real sort of Endred Cole Men in Black speculation, like this is what I think of. Like Men in Black wasn't a great example there. I'm sorry, guys. But as far as people that can like use telekinesis and mind control and things of that nature, I think that's where that comes from here in Dimension 9 when we talk about superpowers. And they can also move freely throughout time and dimensions as well.
Okay.
So we might be talking a little bit about like a Doctor Strange or a Jedi Knight here.
Yeah.
Maybe. Probably more of a Jedi Knight because they have their own laws of physics.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm. I just started watching all the Star Wars in order, by the way. I'm very excited about this. I quite like it. We just finished the Clone Wars, so...
Yours aren't bad.
No, it wasn't bad. I like the first one a little bit better than the Clone Wars.
I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but they're fun movies. I like the first 6. They get a little boring after that, but
yeah,
I like Mandalorian.
Yeah, I've seen only little bits of the Mandalorian, but we'll get back to this my opinion on Star Wars after I've seen the full collection. Dimension number 10 is beyond imaginable. This is where time and space are controlled. And this is where it's speculated that God could live in this dimension. Unimaginable power controls time and space, are able to make things occur, such as big bangs, and just immense amounts of power as far as time and space goes. Because when you think about this time-space continuum, it's infinite. It's huge. We have parts in space that we have not been able to get to because of how far away they are. There are massive pits and black holes, and you think about I hate using this word over and over again. The space that is just in black holes, or the volume, I should say, that's in there. Like, you have no idea how big this is. Absolutely not. People are like, "Oh, the Grand Canyon's big." How big do you think the freaking black hole is? Like, it's ginormous. So when you think about something that has control over that much space and over that much time and volume, yeah, it is godlike.
Yeah.
So that's what, and I mean beyond imaginable power, like making of the Big Bang or the universe. You know, they didn't specifically say creating life, but I guess that's implied with the Big Bang. I don't know. You guys make your own interpretations. 11, the 11th dimension, which this one is still up for debate. However, I think this one kind of goes a little bit more into the supernatural world. At least, if not into the supernatural world, we're definitely getting into the molecular world where things are a lot more condensed and smaller. And we actually have to look at, atoms and, specific electrons and shit like that.
Okay.
But this is vibrations and particles. So this actually has a lot to do with string theory. They're super small. They're actually smaller than a nucleus and 3 times the billionth of a centimeter.
Wow.
So it's 1 billionth of a billionth of a billionth of 1 centimeter.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was big. It's small. It's a little thing. It's a little thing. And where we differ in the point-like particle theory versus string theory is actually the process of the fundamental constituents of the universe and one-dimensional strings rather than point-like particles. Aren't you so happy I did that all by myself?
Nice.
I done did it, guys. So basically, it's taking the point system and making it even smaller into creating more dimensions and more universes that could be there, may have always been there that we're just now getting able to see. But that also plays into the theory that we could be living in a higher dimension, but just not able to see it because of our technology, our brain capacity, different areas that we could be lacking in that in the future we might not be, whether due to evolution, whether due to technological advances. I fucking love this topic. I get very excited just to know that like other things are out there that like we can talk to and we can explore and like, because I mean there's people like, I mean, they might not be people, I don't know what they're gonna be, but it's just interesting to think that there's so many other worlds of things out there that we're probably could be maybe here longer than what we have been here in the universe, and to be able to grab that knowledge and talk with them and have a dialogue, I think would be really cool. Assuming they don't want to go to war with us. That would be good.
Well, is it even possible for them to interact with us? Is it possible for that to...
In some dimensions, yes, because we do have some dimensions where beings can and I mean, we're talking about the self here. So in regards to the self, it gets a little weird. But as far as like one I'm gonna call it a creature. I don't know. Being. I'll call it a being. As far as one being being able to go from like dimension 6 over to our dimension.
Okay.
It seems plausible. It seems fine. So we're going to talk about the interdimensional hypothesis here in a minute. But first, I want to ask you, do you know what the Mandela effect is?
Yes.
Okay.
Very aware of that, yeah.
Awesome. For those of you who don't, it was actually kind of created in 2009 by Fiona Broome after she discovered that her and a lot of people believe that Nelson Mandela had died in the 1980s when he had actually died in 2013. When do you think he died?
I was one of those people that thought he died like a long time ago.
Really?
Yeah, like I thought he had been dead. Like I didn't know he was still alive. But
wow.
Yeah, that was yeah, I had thought that for a while.
We're from different dimensions because I remember him dying in 2013 when I was in high school.
Okay.
Specifically, I remember that day because like we had like a whole day where we just studied in all of our classes the accomplishments of Nelson Mandela and how he like fought for peace and whatnot. So yeah, and I actually didn't find out that was a thing. You wait for this until after I moved in with Ty and Eric, or not Ty and Eric, Ben and Eric.
Really?
I know, right? It's like I found out so much when I moved in with them. Because they were like, when did he die? And I said, when I was in high school in 2000 teens. And they were like, no, he died in the 80s when he was, I think one of them said they thought he had died when he was in jail in the 1980s. I'm not sure. But yeah. And like, we were like, we're all from different dimensions. It's cool. It's fine. So that's kind of what started that one for me. So that's just kind of, and we're going to talk about that more as we get into the encounters on the third part of this. I just kind of wanted to touch on that just a little bit because that is always in the forefront of my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, what dimension are you from?
I think that's always really good, like, example of multi-dimensions is the Mandela effect, with the Berenstain Bears. Was it Jiff? That's another one.
The Goonies, I know, is one.
The Goonies? What's that one?
The one where the octopus is in the Goonies.
Oh.
And when it's not in the Goonies.
That's a hard one. Cause there's like, you can actually find footage of that.
Can you?
Yeah, that was.
I need to see this.
I don't know if you find footage. You can find pictures of it. Cause it's that was one of the original endings was.
Oh.
And then, they decided not to go that route. Yeah, there's supposed to be an octopus in One-Eyed Willie's ship. But
yeah. JC Penney's is one though. People remember like the S being on JC Penney's.
Yeah, I do too. Jiffy one always gets me because I could have swore it was Jiffy. Or Jiff with, was it 1F or 2F or something like that? So, the peanut
I've always known it only have 1F.
Yeah, I always remember it being 2. I also remember it being Jiffy, but it's not. It's never Jiffy.
I don't know. So. I know Jiffy Lube.
Yeah,
like the car part store.
Yeah,
or not
weird stuff. It's weird to think about those kind of things. Examples of those.
It's weird. I'm pretty sure like someone's marketing team was like, "We're gonna do this and trick everybody." I hope it's not that lucrative. I hope it really was like a trick of the. Like
There's a really great episode of the X-Files that deals with that. It was one of the newer seasons. I think it was like season 11 did that. And I love that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes. It's written by the writer I've mentioned a couple times. My favorite episode of the X-Files is Josie Chunks from Outer Space, and the writer of it came back for that and wrote that one. That's like my second favorite episode of X-Files. So
nice. I'm writing that down.
Yeah, Josie Chunks from Outer Space. That's my favorite episode. And I can't remember what the other one's called. The other one about the multi-dimensions. But it's great. It's fantastic. It's an amazing episode.
Fabulous.
We talk about Josie Chunks Outer Space and the Men in Black. So that's one of my favorite Men in Black iterations in it. So it's a great episode. It's a great episode. Josie Chunks Outer Space. Anyways, back on multi-dimensions. We luckily live in a dimension where I can watch X-Files.
I know, right? I know. There's a dimension where Ty's just binge watching X-Files right now.
It's this one. I do that a lot. I do that a lot. There's a lot of times where Evan will go take a nap and I'll just put on X-Files for like 4 hours. And I'll just binge watch X-Files.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. So now let's talk about interdimensional travel. So I found this to be very interesting, my dear friends. Britain's Guardian newspaper had an article released that London is the largest station for interdimensional time travel.
Wow.
So, in 2017, Portals of London had an article posted, in its blog. And according to the post, workers were working on a project where they could spend hours in a tunnel while working and only to emerge just minutes after they had entered.
Really?
I actually sent you this story because we're going to talk about it on Encounters. I literally fell into my chair while reading this because it was really, really cool. So, and we're going to talk about it on Encounters, but they go into a lot of detail on how the time would just stop when they went down into this tunnel. A man was said to have aged 3 years by working in this tunnel, and they did not mean that metaphorically. They meant physically, physiologically, all of it. And when they came up, it would be like no time had passed at all. They would workers on the site actually recalled getting on the radio to ask one of the men to come up for a break or for a status check or whatever. And the person that they had called to come up from the tunnel, as soon as they would put their radio down, the person that had called, the man they had called would be standing right there, like no time had passed at all.
Wow.
So in the Portals of London, they're actually working towards a catalog of London's interdimensional gateways. Very interesting. And they do have a lot of catalogs and a lot of stories like this on Portals of London. However, my dear friends, I don't want you to get your hopes up because unfortunately, this is all fiction.
Oh, no.
I know. I was so sad. I was really confused reading this article as well because they present it like it's real at first, and then without telling you, they go into oh yeah, but it's a fictional blog, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's Don't do that. Tell me it's fiction. I'm gullible.
That sucks.
So, but while this is fiction, the author of this particular story, which is called Under River, Outside Time, the Woolwich Foot Tunnel Anomaly. The biggest thing with this was that it was unpredictable on when and where these portals were going to pop up. So nobody knew that going down into this tunnel, it was going to cause such a kerfuffle. And a lot of people didn't, in the story, a lot of people didn't believe this either. However, while the story is untrue, the author, who chose to remain anonymous, does state that the story does play into the self dimension where we can create based on what we are reading, our own dimension based on the information that we're intaking. It's kind of like we're going inside of our own selves for that dimension, and it's not one of the 11. But the way this author explained it, she said, you're going into yourself and you're just ignoring the outside world. And it's like you're within your own dimension of your own self. You're in a sea of your own self. And it was quite beautiful the way that this author explained it.
Yeah, that is
very peaceful.
Yeah, that is a very peaceful way of describing it.
So now we're going to get into our last, but certainly not our least point of today's episode, which is the interdimensional hypothesis. And you guys know I haven't talked a whole lot about these guys here in a minute. So let's bring back up my little green guys, UFO sightings. So the interdimensional hypothesis links itself to UFO sightings that were results of other dimensions that coexist alongside of each other. Now, this happened in the mid 19th century. When spiritualists would then adopt the idea or the concept of different dimensions because there were so many flying discs being seen. And in 1947 specifically,
Back to 47.
What do we remember happened in 1947, my little text conspiracy students?
What happened there?
Roswell happened. So then we start to see this interdimensional hypothesis relating to the UFOs, specifically and their sightings. But then two other hypotheses would come out, which would be the extraterrestrial hypothesis, which would be visits to other worlds and dimensions, like we talked about with specifically, I believe, number 9. Let me check. Yeah, number 9. Number 9, because we do have, and we'll talk about it in encounters a little bit more, but there are some sightings where it does seem like they've gone to a completely different world. Some sightings are, they're just in the ship. Others say they got out of the ship. It's all very hazy, things of that nature. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but we're going to talk about it later. The second hypothesis that came from the interdimensional hypothesis would be the psychological hypothesis. And this is one of probably the most common, honestly, at this point. Sort of, what do I want to say it is, Ty? Sort of a, I keep wanting to say catch-all, but it's really not a catch-all. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really trying not to be biased here. It's sort of like oh, well, this is what happened. And people do get dramatic. I get dramatic, so it's fine. Okay. So this is the psychological hypothesis, and this explains that sightings were actually explained by the person's psyche or a social phenomenon going on.
Okay.
Such as a Cold War.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So this was then, created, and then there were propounded cosmic cosmology planes created. Specifically, there were 7 planes. This was a lot of how we got the etheric body, and it just goes nuts into the etheric plane and the etheric body, which basically is just this. It's pretty much the precursor to the multi-dimension, I guess, theory. Even though, like, I fully believe there's multiple dimensions out there. Whether or not there's 11 out there, I'm not sure, but I definitely think there's more than one. Okay. But pretty much the etheric plane and the etheric body lend itself to believing in that hypothesis and, going ahead and kind of laying that foundation for there are multiple worlds, there are multiple dimensions. So now that I've talked about my little green men, it all circles back to aliens. And no, I didn't plan it. Did you get it? Planet?
Planet? Nice.
Planet? No, I didn't.
Hanging out with Eric too damn much.
I fucking am.
I know. Shit he would find clever.
He said something the other day, and I just had to look at him and be like, damn it, Eric. It was just too much. So that is all I have for you today on dimensions. This was very exciting for me. It was a little hard to kind of stop because after this, we really do start to get more into parallel universes, or at least kind of that's where my mind goes. Okay. Parallel universe. We could definitely talk more about each individual dimension in great length, honestly. However, most of it would be skeptical and not skeptical, speculated. That's what
speculative,
I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want. But yeah, what did you think?
Man, that's interesting stuff. That is, it's such a crazy concept to wrap your head around. Dimensions, all these different things interacting, and it's wild to me. That's just, it's hard to even fathom, honestly.
It's infinite.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking wild.
It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And I mean, it's here's where I got to give it to Mr. Jeff Goldblum, because he has talked a little bit about like how crazy it is that, one person can end up in a certain situation, and how big and infinite the universe is, and
Right.
how just incredibly coincidental. Because that's all I think. Like, I don't know if I'm confident enough to say that I think that all things are coincidental, that nothing happens for a reason. I don't think I'm confident in saying that. However, I do believe that a great deal of life depends on chance. And that's a lot of what the dimensions theory kind of lends to us. Is we're given a lot of chances, we're given a lot of opportunity, but we have a universe for each chance and opportunity that we take, depending on which one we take, which is
Right.
very interesting to me. Because haven't you ever wanted to wonder, like, what would have happened if I would have gone out that night? Or
Oh
what would have
yeah,
happened?
I think about that kind of shit all the time. I'll get caught in that kind of shit constantly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, oh man. Just to think of how different life would be, that'll send you down a rabbit hole of your own.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that'll eat some time up. If you want to ever eat some time up in your day, start thinking about that kind of shit.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna have a fun time at the end of it, but
it'll definitely like make you ponder and question a lot of things when you do that. It's a very interesting exercise if you want to, like I said, eat up some time in your day. Go for it. It'll
sure.
consume a lot of your day.
What do you think about dimensions? Do you think Sasquatch could be an interdimensional time traveler?
I've heard that theory a lot, and it's very interesting. It's a really interesting concept. I actually watched a movie a while back. It was kind of underwhelming, but it was called Lost Coast Tapes, and it kind of dealt with that concept of Bigfoot being an interdimensional being. And so the movie wasn't very good, but it was an interesting concept they kind of had in it. But it's interesting. Aliens, I think, are always an obvious indicator of maybe they're interdimensional beings rather than extraterrestrials. I mean, super interesting to think that kind of stuff.
I think it would make the most sense if some aliens were interdimensional, because it would make sense on how they would be able to travel at some of the speeds and some of the velocities that they're able to. Because it just doesn't fit what we're able to do. And maybe that's me kind of reaching for the moons and the stars here. Maybe it really is that simple of like their technology is just better than ours, or I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities there, but I think that's what the most fun about it is how many possibilities there are. Would you ever meet a parallel universe self of your version of yourself? I mean,
I'd have to say, yeah. I mean, that'd be too intriguing of a concept not to not to just at least want to try, Hi, Shy. Shy chimed in. Chimed in on it.
Shy. I don't know if I'd want to.
Right into the mic.
It really was. I heard that loud and clear. Just
yeah. This does not want anything to do with any interdimensional shit.
She's like, nope, I'm the only Shy. I don't need to meet another version of me. Like, Dad, you don't need another version of you either. You're the best dad. I don't think I could meet another version of myself. I think it would be too weird.
I'd have to. If I had the opportunity to, I'd have to. That'd be just too much not to consider. At least the possibility of just meeting yourself. That would be wild.
What if you thought you were annoying though? Could you pawn it off on be like, oh well, that's a different dimension version of me. I never have to see that bitch again.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
There's a version of me out there where I am just like, I am all Valley Girl. You guys think that I sound all Valley Girl. I promise you I'm not. Starship Troopers is my favorite movie. I'm pretty toned down. But anyhow, I could go on about that for a really, really long time. But But I'm super excited. Like I said, this is the first of a 3-part series. The next part we're going to touch on is going to be parallel universes. I'm super excited to talk about that. We're, of course, going to touch on some glitches in the Matrix. However, I think we're mainly going to get more into that once we get into our encounters episode, where we're going to be talking about encounters of people visiting other dimensions, of people, seeing interdimensional creatures, possibly spectrous. I can't say that word. I'm going to stop saying it. And we're also, going to be talking a lot about people who had, experienced the Mandela effect, people who have claimed to see a version of their parallel universe self. That is super interesting and freaky. I actually listened to a story not too long ago about a fellow that had to quit his job because he saw a version of himself from a parallel universe. Very interesting stuff. I'm very excited for that.
Very interesting.
Oh, yes.
That was it. That was good. That was a good introduction to Dimensions. Yeah. I'm excited for the sequel. I'm excited to follow up on this because that was some cool shit. I like reading about this kind of stuff. It's awesome.
Oh, I know. This is my bread and butter right here.
Well, I'm glad we're diving into it deep here to start off 2023.
Absolutely.
This is good. Wow, there you had it. Bailey introducing us to Dimensions. A lot of big words and stuff. And in our next episode, Bailey kind of, got you guys thinking, with your brains and all the smart stuff. Well, I'm going to focus a little more on the primitive side of things because we are talking in our next episode, we're talking porn. We are talking porn conspiracies.
Oh, Mama, Daddy, don't listen to that one. Mama, Daddy, don't.
It's super interesting. I went down a little rabbit hole and, man, did not ever think about that being an avenue for conspiracies, but
I sure as hell didn't.
Yeah, did a lot of research.
When you showed me the graphic for this, I went, "What are you and Michael doing?" And then I saw that it was legit, and I went, "Oh, okay, we gonna do it, okay."
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
I'm very excited. I cannot. Yeah. I'm very excited to hear how this is gonna go. I have my I have my guesses on where this is gonna go. I'm gonna. Should I?
We'll save it. We'll save it. We'll save it. Yeah, you might want to start doing some research.
Okay, get a good primer.
Yeah, get on. Open up the private tab on your phone and do some research.
I can't like not use my VPN for this one. I have to.
Man, that's what we got in store for the next episode of Cult Talk Conspiracy. And then after that, we'll be back with more interdimensional talk from Bailey. This is a little mini series she's doing, so that'll be really fun.
I've been very excited about this one. I've been talking about it all December long, really.
Yeah.
It's been really annoying. Where can they find us, Ty?
At Cult Talk Net across the board. That's everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. At Cult Talk Net. Make sure you guys check out Cult of Campbell on Mondays. I think we're on a hiatus right now. We'll be coming back with a new kind of take on Cult of Campbell. So keep an eye out for that. Or ear out for that. Cult of Lore every first and third Thursday of the month. That's our deep dive lore-based show. And you can find all these on their respective feeds, but you can also find them all localized at Cult Talk Net YouTube, youtube.com/CultTalkNet, where you can also find full episodes of Cult Talk Conspiracy every other Tuesday. And we thank you guys for listening. I think that does it.
I think it does too. I love how simple you made at Cult Talk Net all the way across the board.
That's why I tried. Yeah, I love it. It's easy. But there we have it. I've been Ty.
I've been Bailey.
Question everything.